How long should I study for the UCAT? I am in year 9 or 10 and I'm thinking about like doing this UCAT thing, or I'm in year 11 and I'm seeing my friends starting this UCAT thing. And like, when should I start? This is a very common question that I get asked. And so I'm going to compile my thoughts in a video and hopefully this is of some help for you. Obviously, everyone has their different opinions. So if you ask one person, they'll say like, oh no, you don't need a tutor. You can prepare for 6 weeks. And if you ask someone else, they'll be like, oh no, you need to start like straight away. You need to like do all these things. Da 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 da. Um, so everyone will have different views, but hopefully I can like give some reasoning behind the different approaches that people take. The first of all is the idea of can you study for the UCAT? And I'm hoping that there's a degree of trust that says you definitely can. I and many others have prepared for this. Note significant difference between when you start preparing and after even like 3 months, it's worlds apart. Now, I would I would almost like wager that anyone who's done no UCAT prep, try and sit the test. And if you can, I've never met anyone who can finish all the questions. Whereas after 6 months, like if you're going into the test, you should be able to finish all the questions. And so, yes, you can definitely study for the test. There's no like general knowledge you need to know. You don't really need to know anything about medicine for it, but you need strategies to manage time, right? You need to know like your pace. It's sort of like, in the interview, you have 8 minutes to answer 5 questions. Now, if you do no preparation, you'll just like keep talking and you might talk for too long, you might talk for too little. It takes practice to work out like roughly what's a 1 minute and a half answer and how do you structure that. And the same thing goes with the UCAT. Like you need strategies to help you finish this in time. The questions are not hard. Like maybe they're year 10 level difficulty, but generally not as hard as the subject material that you're doing at school. But the timing is the hard bit. And you need to study to work out how you can finish all the questions and come up with strategies that help you do things in time. Number two, people often worry about balancing UCAT and year 12. And to be honest, this is like, I think the hardest part about it, because if you're a school student, you have to sit the UCAT in like July or August of year 12. And that sucks because that's sort of the period where things like super busy. If you think about like when unit, say in like when in if you think about when like your first semester content is being assessed, it's generally at the end of that term 2 holidays. And so people generally have like a string of sacks then, and then you go into year 12. And if you're from New South Wales, you probably have trial exams right after that and super busy. And people like it's not that hard to say, oh yeah, fork out, an hour or two every single day of your year 12 to dedicate to this exam. Um, which, you may do well in, but you may not. Whereas people have sort of everyone around them's doing high school things. You've got 5, 6 different subjects and teachers asking you, setting your assignments. Whereas no one's going to give you homework for the UCAT. There's no sacks along the way or tests along the way. It's just nothing, nothing, nothing. Bang, final exam, you get your score, you're done. So that's why it is helpful also to get like a tutor to give you some advice regarding like what you should be doing, where you should be, and sort of what milestones to check along the way. Now, in terms of balancing UCAT in year 12, I think there's a few things that I'd say. Number one, like start early. So if you can, as much work as you can get done before year 12, the better. Number two, do your UCAT earlier in the day or in the session, practice session. So some people will wake up early and do the UCAT. For me, I would probably come home around like 4:30, eat something until 5, and then that first like hour or hour or two is UCAT time. And then after that is ATAR time. So I try and allocate the first 1/3 of my study to the UCAT and then the next 2/3 to the ATAR stuff. But I also did lots of ATAR things in the holidays between year 11 and 12. I finished my maths textbooks. I wouldn't have to worry about that during the year. So you can save yourself a bit of work in year 12 with the things you do in year 11, particularly that year 11 and year 12 holidays. But I think just ultimately allocating a fixed amount of time to start your session with and getting it over and done with before you go into your ATAR is the best way of balancing things. Can I start practicing too early? Yes, there's lots of parents who post on discussion pages in year 7, year 8, year 9 about UCAT preparation. To be honest, the skills in the UCAT are super general. It's reading comprehension, logical games, and reasoning and maths. And your child is probably working on these things and improving on them through school alone. To be honest, I think probably before year 10 is too early. Even year 10, my experience is uh, it's not necessary and people generally don't commit to it that much. So I would be saying like maybe start like sometime in year 11 is probably the sweet spot, or maybe the end of year 10, like that holidays. But on the other hand, there are people who start in year 10 who like, use their time diligently. So I think it's possible, but unlikely to have good results from year 10. But if you're the type of like family that want to, get ahead and your child is like committed and you've got a good plan, then I have seen students in year 10 like prepare well. Year 9 and above, I think year 9 and below, I think is a bit too early. How much practice is required? Now, I believe if you practice hard for 3 months, you can get in. But by hard, I mean like if you do like 4 hours a day or like 6 hours a day for 3 months. So like there's like the uni students who've already sat the UCAT before. Like if you give it 3 or 4 months of hard work, I reckon that's enough. But the thing is, when you're in year 12, it's just not possible to do 3 or 4 months of hard work because all that time is going to other subjects. So for most people, I'd say if you start at the end of year 11 and you use that year 11, year 12 holidays, like that's probably the latest I would start. But that's probably what I would do. If I was doing it again, end of year 11, as soon as I finish my like final exams, I'm just going to do a ton of UCAT and try and get basically as high as I can by the time year 12 starts. Increasingly, people are starting like in mid year 11 or early year 11, and that's reasonable too. As I said, sometimes even year 10. But to me, if you commit to doing lots of practice, then end of year 11, you can get away with it. But then obviously, if your family is going like overseas or doing some trips, or you want to do other subjects work, or you don't want to take as much of a risk as I took, then like mid year 11 is fine. But once you start, you've got to commit to consistent practice. So I think for most people, that's going to be about an hour a day. And then on holidays, scaling that up to 2 to 4 hours a day. But if you can find an hour a day and then maybe 2 hours a day on weekends, that's a good amount. And then you can track your percentiles and adjust accordingly. So if you start at the 30th percentile and you're improving 40, 50, 60 with an hour a day, like that's great. Keep going. Whereas if you're doing like half an hour a day and you're making the same improvement, great. But if you're doing half an hour a day and it's static, then you need to change something. And you'll know based on your Meta-Phi Meta-Entry scores whether you're like doing well enough. Because if you're like below the 90th percentile, the chance that you get that cutoff score is very, very small. So I would be aiming for everyone to score above the 95th percentile on Meta-Phi Meta-Entry before they sit their test. Now, obviously, that's not realistic for everyone. And there are many examples of people who are scoring lower and then have great test days. But also there are many examples you don't hear about people who score really highly and then have a bad test day. So I would, if it was me, I would probably start end of year 11, do a ton of work over the year 11, 12 holidays, try and pass the 95th percentile at least. I mean, I would just try and get to the 99th and go as high as possible. But minimum would be trying to get at least one score above the 95th percentile before I sit my test in the holidays in July. I'm happy to answer any questions based off that. If you want further information, book in a free call with me through the link in the description. Otherwise, there's more information on the following video. If you're serious about getting a good score, putting in whether it be you have 1 month to go or 1 year to go, it's important with the UCAT to get yourself equipped with the best resource possible because you need to be in the top 5 to 10%. So the first thing you should do is click the link in the description. This will give you access to my inner circle where I provide exclusive resources. The first of these is free PDFs. I every week will send out a free PDF covering some of my best strategies in each section. And so these include things like question types and key factors that you can consider. Additionally, by clicking out the link in the description, we can have a free one-on-one call where I give you my approach to practicing the UCAT and give you some advice and some free mentorship on how you can do well with this test and what it's like once you're in med. Furthermore, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for this to be the biggest area of free UCAT resources available with videos, PDFs, and free calls. And so why not get your hands on these resources that have helped me and others get into med? Please do me a favor and share this with others if you found it helpful, and stay tuned for more videos on this channel. Thanks very much, guys. I'll see you next time.